Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. Me and Ryan are back to recap episode 1 of Survivor season 45. What an eventful season premiere we had. I'm extremely excited to talk about it. Ryan, I don't even know I don't even know where to start.
Dylan, eventful is a great way to put it. I always come on with a quippy little thing, like I make a reference to the episode. And I feel like, yeah, eventful is all I can really say. I don't think any of us expected it to end in that way. What a way to start 45, but I'm sure we're going to get into all of it.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about. I think we just, start by just giving our thoughts on the episode. Now, if you're watching for the first time, be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Like the video, really helps us out. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Soul Survivor Pod. Subscribe to our podcast, Apple and Spotify. Links will be in the description below. Now, the thing is, so apologies if you normally watch on Twitter, but we're having an issue with our Twitter. So once we get that figured out, the stream will be back there. But right now we're just streaming on YouTube. But yeah, we'll figure that out for next week. But I'm excited to get right into it, get right into the episode. Let me just say that I think this is a perfect way to start the podcast. I was literally just going to tell Ryan the story before I hopped on here. And then I was like, you know what? This is a perfect story for the podcast. But I was at my friend's apartment last night and we had a bunch of us that are normally there, then a few like friends and friends of friends. And somebody said, knowing that me and I was at Hef's apartment.
Yeah.
So for those who have been watching since 2020, you know who Hef is. Somebody knows that me and Hef watched Survivor and said, I need to get everyone's thoughts on the first episode of Survivor. And I was just like, oh God, I know where this is going. And we're just like, me and Hef are like, it was an unfortunate ending, but we enjoyed the rest of the episode. And she was like, that was the worst episode of Survivor that I have ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, it's crazy how many negative reviews there have been so far of that first episode, but can't say I'm surprised based on everything that happened. I'll give my full review, but Ryan, the floor is yours.
Dylan, I hate to say it, I'm kind of leaning on the negative side. Look, obviously it's episode one. We still have a long, long way to go. 17 more people left, and next week could be a banger. You never know. I just feel like the ending, which we'll get into in greater detail, kind of sour the episode. We've never had a premiere end on a quit. We've had premieres end on a medevac. We've never had one end in a quit before. The earliest quit I think we've ever seen was like Austin and Pearl Islands in like episode 5 or 6, maybe Lindsay and Cagayan, maybe like in episode 5 after Cliff Robinson got voted out. But never ending in a quit first. That was kind of rough. A lot of crying on the Yellow Tribe. We'll get into all the crying, some just poor challenge performances, more Savvy or Sweat. So Dylan, even though I'm excited to see some people on this cast and where the season goes, I probably would lean on the negative side. Not as like harsh as some people are going with the worst thing I've ever seen, because I've seen worse, but not very positively skewed for me. What about you?
Yeah, so I actually watched as I'm watching the episode, and obviously we don't do Wednesday nights anymore until my work schedule gets cleared up.
Mhm.
But so obviously since I cannot watch live, I watched it late, a little bit after midnight, got it started on the DVR, fired it up, watched alone, having known that my brother, who I always speak to throughout the episodes, he had already watched, you had already watched, a bunch of friends that I know watched already watched. And I went in, I did not hear anything about it at all. The only thing I had heard going in, my brother had called it "quote unquote" mid, and I was like, okay,
Oh,
I was like, okay, it was mid.
mid.
I don't know what that means in context of the Survivor episode. So I'm like, okay, I went in with an open mind. I watched the whole episode, and this could be unpopular. I didn't mind, and almost I would say enjoyed most of the episode until the ending. And the ending, obviously, the vote is a huge, huge part of the outcome of the episode, what people feel about the episode. Um, and the fact that the first episode, which included so much of people complaining and a lot of crying, ends in a quit. It's not great. It's not great. and I know that there's nothing that Survivor could do about that in terms of editing and stuff, but they have to do a better job in terms of casting. I don't understand how you let somebody out there that even has a chance of that happening to. Like I, thousands and thousands of people apply. Thousands of people, I'm sure, are called for casting. Thousands of
Mhm,
people are interviewed. These people that get out there are probably interviewed a zillion times before they actually get on the show. You should
mhm.
be able to sniff out people that want to be there and don't want to be there. And who's going for the right reasons and who's not going for the right reasons. You should be able to sniff that out. And the fact that we get a quit in episode 1, it is extremely disappointing and infuriating. There are plenty of people who want to be in that spot. There were alternates who are sitting at Ponderosa waiting to play the game if somebody dropped out. And next thing you know, you get a day 1 quit, or day 3 or whatever the
Yeah,
day, first vote quit.
yeah.
It's definitely tough to watch. I'm going to choose to stay positive though and say that I think there are some positives, and maybe we have just lowered the bar a lot from where it used to be. But I do see that you know, personally, I think that there are some positives to take out of the episode, and I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah, I think we'll get to the positives because I think what we saw on the Blue and Red Tribe kind of felt like some classic Survivor stuff in terms of occupation discussions and camp life and building a shelter. So lots of positive things to take away from Blue and Red. Yellow was obviously a bit more of a train wreck. I know people were making Gabon comparisons already. This to me, this was like a straight episode 1 for the brains of Kaki and the Luzon tribe. This was like beat for beat, just train wreck immediately for the Yellow tribe. But yeah, no, just to stay on Hannah's quit for just one more minute. I feel like it is very disappointing. We never want to see quits. I never want to see quits at all. There's almost, to me, the only quit in Survivor history that I think a lot of people get behind is Jenna Maraska when she quit All Stars because her mom was about to pass away. Like, I think that's obviously a very different situation, of course. But for the most part, fans don't take kindly to quits, Dylan. And the thing about Hannah that I'm really curious about is that we learned in Exit Press that she was suffering from nicotine withdrawals. So kind of similar to Jackson in 42, suffering from lithium withdrawals, which obviously is a bit more serious than the nicotine. Because I think Jackson had they pulled him from the game because it was actually a serious medical thing for him. But Hannah said in her Exit Press she was going through withdrawals. She admits that she should have tried to quit nicotine and take it day by day like months ago, but she kind of went cold turkey 2 days before and she just couldn't handle it physically. I'd be curious to know, Dylan, how much production knew about this because you're right. I think casting has to do a better job in catching this. And it's one thing if they didn't know at all because she just never told them, which that's just really unfortunate. But it's even worse that they knew about it and were like, yeah, you think you can handle it. And then this happened. It's very unfortunate, like you said, for other fans that apply and also for the alternate sitting at Ponderosa right there. So I'm very upset to see it. I'm not gonna get like very bombastic about it. People have been very, very bad on social media, so I won't go that route. But it is very unfortunate to see, and I just wish it kind of could have got handled in a better way.
Yeah, I think I don't the fact is okay. So if she goes cold turkey 2 days before, they're at Ponderosa like what for 2 weeks before. So like
Yeah.
maybe I mean I'm surprised that you're even allowed to smoke at Ponderosa given.
I think it was like patches, but yeah, something like that, I guess.
Yeah, oh, I guess that makes sense. But or I'll say it because there's plenty of different ways to get your nicotine these days.
Yeah.
I'll say the fact that you're allowed to have nicotine products at Ponderosa seems off. That's what I'll say. Um,
Mhm.
but anyway, I do want to hop into the episode and the positives of it because there were
Yeah.
some positives. And I think there are some players that I'm excited to see going forward. Um, and like normal, if you are new to this podcast, we'll run through a little bit chronologically here and add our insight where we could. Um, the opening, we had it on a boat this time, which I believe it feels like it's been a while since that happened. I don't know when when was the last time we had an opening on a boat, but
Definitely, in the new era, definitely 41 opened on a boat. I know
okay,
last season when Bruce got hurt, it was on a beach. I'm
right.
trying to remember the other two, but I know at least 41 had a boat. So
Yeah. So I think the big thing that we need to talk about here from this opening scene is Bruce is reintroduced by Jeff Probst. And look, Bruce, I think he got a pretty normal introduction from Jeff. He said everyone is going to recognize Bruce. You guys literally just watched this a few weeks ago before you came out here, and he had to be medevaced, so we gave him another chance. And you had people giving confessionals like, "I recognize Bruce," and it's so funny when like people like give confessionals like that. Like the guy was out there for like 12 hours, and people are like, "I recognize that Bruce is here."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but so Bruce is given another chance. Jeff brings it up. And then we have Emily, who is not afraid to call out that, she thinks that, Bruce is kind of, BSing in the fact that he says that he basically has the same experience as everyone else. He was only there for 12 hours. And she was like, well, I disagree with that. And then, I think from that point, everyone kind of immediately knew what type of character Emily is going to be this season.
I mean, Dylan, the fact that, and listen, you and I, if we go on the show, we want to win. That's the whole purpose. But for Emily to say, if I don't win, I want to go out first because there's no other point in being here. You could tell she already is just very, very strict in how she kind of views life and how she views the game. And she pulled, Dylan, the classic. I know we both love Damabate. She pulls the classic Damabate. Like, anyone have any comments? And she just like raises her hand. Like, that's never going to end well. Obviously, Dom makes the final two. It could have went poorly for him if that tribe maybe went to tribal council early if he and Chris got into it. Clearly, we saw what happens in South Pacific when Coach and Ozzy comes back and Christine speaks up, and then Christine's out like seconds. So when you speak up on the mat in the first episode, it could go either very poorly for you, or you could end up going far if people see you as like someone who's not afraid to speak their mind. But yeah, Emily, the whole episode, I mean, we're going to talk about her, but people have been wanting an old school villain back, and I think Emily has that type of villain energy. The problem is it was very negative from Emily the whole episode. Emily just came off as really abrasive in some ways, and I think she can be a fun villain, like in terms of just the negativity. But I think people were like, whoa, like this was a lot in the first episode.
Yeah. Like, how do I describe it? So I don't know if you actually saw, it was, I believe, one of the most viral Reddit posts since the episode happened.
Really?
But there was an article that came out that allegedly the reason why Emily applied
I saw this, yeah.
is because she was upset with Gabler's win, thought it was unacceptable, and immediately applied, and then got cast. And, we spoke about in our preview podcast that she compared herself to Cass. The personality test she had to take was nearly identical to Cass. So look, I think we expected some villain type things from Emily. But I think it came on even faster than anybody imagined. I think somebody made a good point. I don't know where it was, whether it was on Twitter or wherever I saw it, but somebody was like, like Cass was like great, but like she saved a lot of her like negativity for like the camera, and like occasionally it would come out, to other players. Whereas, and most of the people who worked with Cass, I think, if you listen to Stephen Fishback, he mentioned this week. He said, Cass was very pleasant to have and work with stuff. I don't know if people are saying the same thing about Emily, and maybe we're just seeing the negative part of it, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of positive with her personality. So my main concern for her, obviously, is, it's one thing if she is a villain, right? There's been plenty of villains who have gone very far in the game of Survivor, but you have to be a villain to the point where people could still tolerate you actually being on the beach. And it seems like, and it was pretty apparent, that if Hannah did not quit, then Emily was likely going home.
Yeah.
And I think that, they were kind of shocked that Hannah ended up actually quitting. And I think that they, a lot of people on that tribe really did want Emily out. So, it is tough for the rest of the people on the tribe. I feel for them as well with this quit. It's like you cannot execute gameplay that you want to execute because somebody is sitting there and wanting to quit. It's unfortunate all the way around. All this being said, okay, I am very happy that we do have a legit villain back, because I will say she seems like she's going to be a legit villain.
I think, Dylan, you bring up actually a really, really good point. The fact that Cass and other villains, like, I mean, Russell's obviously a whole different animal, but like a lot of villains sometimes save it for the confessionals. Like, obviously, they're going to be nice to people's faces and then be very devious behind their back and backstab, and they'll blindside a tribal council, but they'll seem pleasant to be around. Like you just said, Cass came off really nice at camp to Steven in both, I guess in second chance. And obviously, I guess the Brains tribe didn't target her in Cagayan. But, in episode one, Cass was like, how are we the Brains tribe? I want to see the criteria for that evaluation. Like, it's very witty and very like dry humor in confessionals. But the difference with Emily, like you just pointed out, was that you have people before Tribal walking down the beach, like Sabaya's talking to Brandon, and Sean's talking to Caleb, and they're like, she's just so negative. She's just so that's such bad energy. And again, I don't want to get into a Gabler territory where I'm saying people have no shot to win in episode one, because clearly we were wrong about that. But Dylan, I just don't see how Emily wins a jury vote. Like, unless like things change and the game is still really early, just from a likability standpoint, I just don't know how she gets the respect of the jury or the likability of the jury. I just feel like she's got to change it up. And I don't know if she realized how much danger she was in if Hannah left, but things got to turn around for the Yellow Tribe quick.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of the Yellow Tribe, let's get to that opening reward challenge. Right on the boat. Three tribes, basically having to jump into the water, paddle around. After, after doing that first task, which I don't even know what it was like getting bags out. Jump into the water, paddle all the way around, climb up a ladder onto the boat, and then untangle the pieces and get your key out and
Yeah.
whatever it was, classic Survivor relay race. But the overshadowing point of this is that the Lulu tribe loses this because Brandon seemingly had some sort of issue climbing the ladder. He could not climb the ladder. He says he had a panic attack, and if you listen to his confessional, he said that after he got finally onto the boat, he says he did not remember any. He said he did not remember anything after that, up until like I guess he was on the boat back or after the challenge, like got back to the beach. So this was obviously a huge talk of the episode, right? It was like, how do you first challenge of the season, tribes are going hard, everybody's juiced up to be there, and then you get somebody who cannot climb a ladder back onto a boat. And I look, Brandon, he took a lot of heat as well, as much heat as Hannah took this episode, and deserved heat to Hannah, I will say. Brandon took a lot of heat for this. And then we could talk about it later, but did not have a good challenge performance either in the
No.
immunity challenge. So Brandon's taking a lot of heat. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on all this. Yeah, I'm curious. What are your thoughts?
Brandon, obviously, other than Hatton, of course, was probably one of the stars of the episode, for better or for worse, depending on your opinion. I think that, look, obviously, he opens up the mat chat with Jeff and he immediately starts crying. We've never had somebody start crying the minute that Jeff asked them the first question of the season. And it's because he's a big fan like us, and he's wanted to be out there his whole life, and now he's finally doing it, so it's all rushing to him. And clearly, the panic attack did not help, was not great for the ladder. I think Hannah said in her exit press, what we didn't see was like medical was out there. Like, there was like a 40-minute period where they were tending to Brandon. He was like white as a sheet. So I guess good for him and his family. They didn't show that on the show, but clearly he was not doing well. And the ladder, Dylan, the one thing I noticed with the ladder was like, if you ever try to climb out of a pool and you go up a ladder, or you ever like do that thing when you're a kid, like where you put your feet up first and then try to like use like your abs to like pull yourself up, like the weight of the water just becomes so much. He was the only person out of the six in the boat where I think he was trying to climb up from the water. And we've seen people climb up ladders before, but I think climbing up the ladder from the water meant that he just couldn't get the weight up. Everybody else, like Sean, like Jay Maya, whoever else was there, I think they jumped off the boat and stepped off the boat onto the ladder, and they all like jumped up quickly. I feel like he was panicking in the water. If he got back in the boat, I think he would have been in a much better situation. But they blew that challenge, and then Red Tribe wins.
Yeah, I think he tried to go from the boat, and then he like slipped into the water, and then like
Yeah.
like you said, if you ever climbed like a ladder out of water that's like kind of like that, it's not the easiest thing to go from the water. I mean, usually the normal person still could easily get up it, but it's definitely harder. And then he went into a full panic attack and couldn't do it. So look, I think, and I'll just give you my thoughts on Brandon right now, as somebody who drafted him in our fantasy league, second pick. I hope, for the sake of my fantasy team, I hope I'm correct here. I'm getting much more. So Hannah, got painted as kind of just a quitter, obviously, because she is. Brandon, I feel like we're gonna get a redemption arc.
David Wright redemption arc right here.
My gut tells me we're gonna get a redemption arc from him. I don't know. It would clearly take a huge turnaround in terms of like everything, because I don't foresee that tribe is going to win many challenges, which means he could be on the block very easily, especially if there's no swap. But if they do figure out a way, and you never know what could happen in Survivor, if they do figure out a way to win a couple challenges, and he kind of skates by, I could see him being somebody with like a self growth arc throughout this game. And we've seen it before, and I know that look, social media is more prevalent with Survivor than ever before. There's people talking all throughout the episode, more podcasts than ever before, more commentary as the episode goes on. But what a lot of people forget in the moment is that we've seen people struggle a lot day one. Maybe not that badly, but we've seen a lot of struggles day one and then overcoming it to end up having a good season. We've seen, David Wright in Millennials versus Gen X. He had a crazy first episode where it seemed like the entire episode that he was going to be first boot, ends up being arguably the best player, one of the best players on the season. You have a guy like, or I should say, you have Aubrey in season 32. I believe she looked pretty, to use the word, and I could say this because she ended up being a phenomenal Survivor player, 3-time player. She ended up being, she was pretty pathetic in the first episode. She was like fainting. She she could get up. She had needed medical, and it was like, oh my God. And I remember that the feeling watching Aubrey in that episode was similar to my feeling on Brandon this episode. And that's why I'm kind of reserving judgment until we see more of him, because I do think that he is a super fan. If you've seen his Twitter, it seems like he was pretty involved in Survivor Twitter before going on the show. So I want to say that based on just vibes I have, I feel like a redemption arc could be coming, and he may not be able to live out that full redemption arc because Lulu Tribe is so actually terrible. They're terrible. I don't know if they could win a single challenge, but I would not be surprised if there is a redemption arc for him.
Yeah, no pun intended. The jury's still out. I mean, it's episode 1. He obviously struggled a lot in both challenges, but for him to get that much screen time and him talking about his growth, which is what the new era is all about, no, clearly he has more in the tank. And I think if Yellow loses again, yes, he could be a target, but I feel like the vote still would be on Emily if Lulu loses again. I feel like Caleb and Sabiyah just provide such strength to that tribe. And granted, we haven't seen Sean that much, but I really do feel like if they lose again, I would be more worried for Emily than I would be for him. I think Brandon still has a lot more runway left.
Yeah, for sure. And there was that one scene where he was told that Emily wanted to get Caleb out, and he runs back to Caleb and is like, they want to get you out. And it was like, all right, he's starting to figure things out maybe a little bit, he's getting his footing. So we'll see. And they didn't really focus much of Tribal on him struggling. I mean, it got brought up briefly, but nothing crazy. So I'm pretty hopeful that this is just a 1 episode thing, and people could, not, hopefully people don't have to worry too much about this being a consistent issue throughout the entire season. But sticking to Lulu, and this is a good segue into the Sweat Savvy. That was, so first of all, as soon as Jeff was like, oh, Savvy or Sweat, I was like, oh, they're bringing it back again, 5 seasons in a row of Savvy and Sweat. How many times is this going to go on? And then I must say, it was a pretty good twist to the Savvy Sweat that I did actually enjoy. The fact that nobody won is certainly interesting, but basically both tribes had to do both Savvy and Sweat, not just pick one. And they were competing against each other in an allotted time. So if the time ran out for both tribes, they would both lose. If one beat the other, then that tribe would get the flint or the supplies, whatever it was, and the other tribe would not get it. For the Bello tribe, which is the blue tribe, Jake and Brando went, and for the yellow tribe, Caleb and Sabiyah went. But like I said before, both tribes did not get it. And let me just say, this seemed like a very, very difficult task to complete in the allotted time. It was almost like they expected or wanted both them to
Yeah.
fail. I kind of got that vibe because Caleb and Sabaya, at least, Brando's a much more skinny guy, so you can understand how carrying those logs is a big issue. Brandon, not Brand, Sabaya and Caleb, both, going to be very good physically in challenges. We could already tell they were struggling with the logs, struggling. And then they got to both tribes got to the savvy portion, and it was like there just wasn't enough time to figure out the savvy. Plus, it seems like their brains were just so cooked from doing the sweat, that they couldn't do it. I wonder. Let me ask you this. Do you think that they had the option to complete the savvy first and then do the sweat, or do you think they had to start with the sweat?
I thought, and I can go back and rewatch this part of the episode. I could have sworn when they were reading the instructions, I thought they read it as you must complete first. First you must carry the logs over to the designated portion. Once you move all 40 logs, whatever, you must then move on to the savvy.
Okay.
I think the letter of the law said you have to go in that order. I would have loved to have known from Jake, Brando, Sabaya, and Caleb if they had a choice. I think if they had a choice, maybe they would have opted for the savvy first. But I think the rules said first you must do the logs. And by the way, Dylan, I think your opinion is actually might be correct, because I think the hot take I've seen on the internet, which I think now has become kind of cold, is production wanted them to fail. I think production was kind of tired that every single other tribe in the new era got the savvy or sweat completed. And I think they're like, how can we have them fail this? Make it even harder on them. And they made it where you only have an hour to do both of these tough tasks. I think production kind of wanted them to fail. And honestly, I think you and I both agree getting kind of tired of Savvy or Sweats. If you wanted to make this Savvy and Sweat head-to-head change, maybe should have done it 2 or 3 seasons ago when it was still fresh. I feel like now the fan base, like, I don't think I've seen anyone say like, "Oh, I love seeing Savvy or Sweat back."
Yeah, and they're gonna have it for season 46 for sure, I
Oh
assume.
boy.
But yeah, I think you make a good point. It's like, how many times do we need to see Savvy sweat? Like it's been 5 seasons now of it. But I thought that it was a cool little twist if they were gonna keep it. So, um, yeah, it looked extremely hard. Um, so I mean, for Caleb and Sabaya to fail it, um, I mean, I thought they looked like they were working really well together. It showed how hard it was, in my opinion. But let's hop into each individual tribe and the dynamic and some of the players now. Hop over the Bellow tribe, where, while the Savvy Sweat is going on, we have 4 players that are back at camp for the Blue tribe, the Bellow tribe. By the way, I saw a lot of people saying that the tribe names are so easy to remember this season. They're all so short. So maybe by like episode 5 or so, I'll actually be saying tribe names instead of colors this time. But I'll say both just for the sake of the beginning here. Bellow tribes. So you had Bruce, Kendra, Katura, and Kelly, all back at the Bellow camp. We kind of got a lot into Bruce, him saying he didn't want to come off as bossy, and then next thing you know, he's telling people what to do around the camp. I mean, this is, you can't make it up. How many times have we seen it from an older player, a player of that generation? And it's so funny because I think we all knew this was coming, and it actually happened. And for all of the girls to be like, like Bruce saying he doesn't want to do this, but he's doing it. That was pretty funny. He strikes me as very much an old school type player. And I'm kind of curious to see how he fits in with that tribe, because he is by far the oldest on that tribe. And it doesn't seem like he fits in at all with the rest of that tribe.
Yeah, no, I think Bruce is going to be really fun. Like you mentioned, we've seen that trope before where people don't want to be the leader or they don't want to come off as bossy, and then the very next scene they come off as bossy. I think he has the right approach, though. I think, if he can be seen as more of the fun uncle and he cannot be seen as dad, I think that helps him in this tribe, seem younger, get kind of connect with the younger members of the tribe. He just can't be being bossy and doing the shelter. I wonder hypothetically, if Jake and Brando were there and they were helping with the shelter and there was more of the guys there, maybe he would have maybe leaned on them a bit to help with the shelter, would have been less bossy, but maybe he felt like compelled to because it was him and the other three women. And maybe he felt like, oh, I have to take the lead here. They're going to look at me to do it. So I can't just, because I think in Survivor, it's one thing to be a leader and come off as bossy and people target you. It's almost worse to be a big physical guy, have the capability to build a shelter, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to back off. I'm not going to do it. And people are like, he's not helping at all. Like he's laying back. That comes
Right.
off almost as worse. So I think Bruce was trying to ride that balance, and I think if Jake and Brando were there, maybe it would have been less apparent. But no, he's got to find his footing, especially because the next scene is where we see the three women, all Virgos or Libra, whatever sign they were. We're like, you know what? Let's all make a women's alliance. So he's got to, reconnect with Brando and Jake if these ladies are gonna stick together. We'll see.
Yo, that was also crazy. Let's talk about that. So the three women immediately team up. Kendra, Katurah, and Kelly, and Kendra apparently is like clearly a huge astrology person because every single thing she mentioned, she was talking about astrology signs. I am not one to be anything close to tapped into that.
You know your sign, Dylan?
I believe I'm an Aquarius, but that's as far as I know.
Because you're January, yeah.
Yeah, January. I Kendra is going to be interesting to watch this season. I don't know what to really make of her. If you remember her cast bio, she's like I relate to Carolyn the most out of any player I've watched. Which I kind of am getting like not like that extreme, but I am getting like I could see why she said that, she's very like free spirited, it seems. Which is it. It was crazy to see. I'm wondering if that's going to rub some people the wrong way after a few days, but we'll have to see. The women seem all over it, so I'm kind of curious to see how far that alliance goes.
Yeah, no, I mean, the reason they made the alliance, well, A, because of their astrology sign, but B, because they recognize, hey, in the new era, these women are going home early. We see it in 44, 43. 42 and 41 were, I think, a little bit more balanced, but but still females that tend to go home earlier, especially in the last two seasons. And I think that's fresh in their mind. And if they can stick, again, the biggest question is like, can they stick to it? Because if they can stick to it, all you need in a tribe of, to do Brad Culpepper math, all you need in a tribe of 6 is 4 and a 6. All they need to do is pull over Brando or Bruce, because clearly, as we see in the next scene, they want to target Jake. It's not good for my team. So they each got to pull over one more person if they can stay strong. So that could be very deadly in a tribe of 6.
Yeah, I think they have the right idea. Like, you have to be concerned if you're a woman in the new era. Like, you just have to be, and it's the unfortunate thing about the new format, and one of the reasons why I think they need to switch it back to 2 tribes, and we could go on and on about that. But yeah, I think so. I think they have the right idea to all team up. We'll see how far it gets them. Obviously, there are the 3 guys. You'll have like a Bruce who has to decide whether he wants. I'm assuming that Jake and Brando, while we didn't see a ton of their actual strategy, I am assuming that they're going to be together. Given the fact that they did that challenge together, we've seen it a lot in the past in the new era. And then you're going to have a swing vote like Bruce, who's going to have to decide whether he wants to go with the girls or go with the guys, and then that's how I think it's going to play out. If they ever lose a challenge, we'll have to see. Who knows if that'll happen. Let's talk a little bit about Jake and Brando. From what we know, Jake told everyone that he's a lawyer. He's the only one on the season that actually told people that they're a lawyer. You had Katurah, who's on his own tribe, also a lawyer, but lied about it. And it was pretty funny to see her like kind of question Jake about being a lawyer, knowing that she's a lawyer herself. I guess, look, that being a lawyer is not something that I thought that people would really, lie about. I didn't think people, I'm not a huge fan about lying about your occupation because I think it'll come back to bite you. One, if people find out, and 2, like, I think people could see through it sometimes. So you have to be very careful. With what you say your occupation is. Like I said, I think people could read through it sometimes. But Katurah seemingly did a really good job of it. I don't think anybody suspects that she's a lawyer, and it just so happened that Kendra threw out Jake's name because he was a lawyer. So it's like, Katara, she had the right read. She did the right thing. I'm also seeing, and I don't know if you could confirm this for me, Ryan, but I
Mhm.
believe that Katara also lied about her age. Um, I don't know if we could get that confirmed from maybe anyone in the chat, but I
Mm.
saw people, I think on Reddit, talking about that she maybe said she was a few years younger than she actually is, potentially to like relate more, lower her threat level. So I don't know if we could look into that. Let me just, I, I believe she's in her 30s, but I think she said she was 29. That's what I think it was.
Mm. I don't it's
So
a good question. I don't remember if she said that or not. It's a
very,
good
very
question.
interesting. Obviously, age is not something that can be fact checked out there. And it's just a few years, but I think it is interesting the game that Katara is playing. We saw a lot of her. But yeah. So Jay confirms in the chat she lied about her age. Her real age is 34. She said she was 29, which is interesting, right? Because I do think that there is a mental difference if somebody's 34 versus 29. 29 to me, if I heard somebody's 29, I'm thinking, oh, they're more like my age, or around my age. I'm 25, by the way.
Yeah.
More like my age, can relate to them more. Whereas if they're 34, I'm thinking like that's a huge age gap. They're basically like an adult, almost 10 years older than me.
Right.
So I think that in order to relate with, and seem less threatening, I think that could be a very interesting or a good move for Katara. So
Yeah.
definitely somebody to watch going forward.
No, she had a good episode. I do like Katara a lot. And I think it's so funny. We have three lawyers in the cast. Two of them were like, I ain't telling anybody. And then Jake's like, I'll tell people. And again, I've said this to you before. I mean, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't understand why people lie about their occupations. I don't think, especially in modern Survivor, it's that important. Back in the day, when people were voting for people because they don't need the money, they have a good life, someone else needs it more. That line of thinking is not really what Survivor's been about since like the early seasons. Now it's more about the gameplay, the social game. And I just don't think being a lawyer is that much of a threat. Maybe they're afraid that you'll cross examine them. Maybe they're afraid that you'll be great presenting to a jury. Maybe that's their fear. I just don't see it being that threatening. I've said to you before, the only profession where I could see you maybe lying about is if you're a police officer, just because people might be afraid or of maybe, um, they could suss out that you're lying. But other than that, I don't see how being a lawyer is that scary, especially when Jake is young. He's the youngest of these three lawyers, Dylan. He just passed the bar. I wouldn't be scared. I mean, obviously, Suits is very popular on Netflix right now. I would not be afraid of a lawyer who just passed the bar. And I find it very interesting that they're targeting him. Now, I do think this tribe won't target him. I feel like this is a misdirect. I think they're going to need him for challenge strength, him and Bruce. So I don't think it'll end up on Jake, but clearly not a great start if people are already eyeballing him on day one or two.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. He's only 26 years old. So like you said, he just became a lawyer. It's not like he's been in practice for a long time, But let's move on to the Red Tribe. Talk a little bit about them. And speaking about lawyers, the first thing we see from the Red Tribe is Julie, who is, I believe, the oldest on the cast in terms of age. The oldest on her tribe, obviously. She's also a lawyer, and she goes with the thing that she teaches art classes out of her home, which that was very interesting. It also is, I'll give her credit to the point where if you're going to lie about your occupation, that's one that I think I could see. Like I could see it if she told me that she was an art teacher out of her home, I would be like, oh, like it wouldn't like be like, this is fishy. Like I don't know. She picked a good occupation to, I guess, lie for, or lie towards, I should say. But that was kind of all we saw from Julie. The entire episode was just like, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not telling people that. I'm also in the Katara camp, But yeah, and we also saw from Sifu, who I think made it clear that he's going to be one of the biggest characters on the season.
Yeah.
Sifu. Let's talk about him real quick. The guy, we didn't really see a ton of his deep strategy. We saw him trying to be like Tony. He, first of all, I love how, he had the opening confessional. He's like, like playing the air guitar, like singing. I was like, oh, this guy's gonna be great. Running around camp already. Not the best strategy, but definitely entertaining. I was dying laughing. I don't know if you caught this, but when he was hiding behind the tree and being like Tony, he's like, I'm going to get into Tony mode. And they walked right past him. Dee was carrying they had a big stick of bamboo, and she like turns and the back of it almost hit him. I thought she was going to like back into him, and he was going to be like standing right
Yeah.
there against the tree, but it didn't happen. What are your thoughts on Julie and Sifu before we get to Austin?
So it's funny. I know you love Caleb's answer about I would say Tony, but out of respect, I won't. Now I guess we see why with Sifu. But no, so Sifu I think could be a fun character. I mean, look, obviously Coach is all time character. Everyone knows and knows who Coach is. And I'm not saying Sifu's going to be a modern day Coach, although he said Sifu literally means coach. It literally means instructor. So clearly, I see what Survivor's going for here. But no, Sifu, I feel like could be a fun character on the show. It's so funny that he tries to be Tony, hide in the bushes, and then the women find him. And listen, he pulls the rookie mistake of looking for an idol and leaving everyone else at camp. Now, I think it's also just the editors are going to show what they want to show, Dylan. Like, there's because everybody has to go get firewood, everybody has to go collect, palm fronds. Like, you're never going to be with every single person, but it's never a good look to leave the entire camp alone and you're gone for an extended period of time. So, not a great look for Sifu, but again, I think he could be a really fun character in the show. We'll see if this comes back to bite him. Maybe this is like a pre-merge arc where if Reba, the Red Tribe, goes to Tribal Council, maybe there's a chance that, the guys look at one of the girls, but Dee pulls the women together and says, you know what, Sifu's kind of threatening, looking for idols and hiding and spying on us. Let's target Sifu. So this could be kind of like a little bit of a foreshadowing to what we might see if Reba ends up going to Tribal Council.
So wait, so we have Julie, Dee, and then who's the other woman on that tribe?
J Maya, and then
J
for the
Maya.
guys, we have Austin, Sifu, and Drew.
Yeah, so we didn't see a ton from Julie, like I said. Did not see a ton from J Maya, like almost nothing. Did not see a ton from Dee other than like a confessional at the beginning. So we didn't really see anything from them at all. Now, we did see, I thought one of the funniest confessionals in the episode was from Drew, who I remember looking at the casting bios, and I was reading this guy, and I think we kind of spoke about this a little bit on the casting bio. We're like, he seems a little cocky. Like I was thinking to myself, I don't know why they casted this guy. Like I don't know how he got casted. It's pretty clear from the first confessional why he got casted on this show. Hilarious first confessional. There's the Drew and there's Bastille, two personalities. I was like, this guy's great. This guy, just get him on my TV screen. He's just going to have hilarious confessionals the entire season. Don't know what his gameplay is actually going to be like, but thought that was hilarious. And then you have Austin, who I would say was a star of this episode, finds the Beware advantage, which I did not think anybody was going to find a Beware advantage in episode 1, especially based on, Sifu failing and, the other tribes didn't really get much on that. But Austin finds it. Had to complete an old school idol hunt in order to get the actual idol. Cannot vote once again, which just get rid of that. It's annoying, but cannot vote again until he actually finds the idol. And I believe that the thing he has to do is, at least the first thing, is solve the puzzle that is printed on the tribe flag, which I saw people already like deciphered it. I did not click because I want to try to figure it out myself, but I'm waiting to like see a picture where I could try to figure it out and not have it already spoiled for me. So I was like, I'm just not going to look at it. Maybe they'll show it close next time and I'll be able to figure it out. What are your thoughts on Austin? What are your thoughts on Drew? Everything having to do with this.
I like Austin a lot. I mean, obviously, people probably don't care a lot about our draft, but when we were drafting with some of our friends, I had to decide between Jake and Austin at my pick, and I liked them both a lot. I ended up going with Jake, which could still end up working out, and Sabaya. But no, I liked Austin a lot. I think he feels such like a triple threat in terms of likability, like social game, physical ability, and the smarts. Really reminds me of like a Devin Pinto and Triple H, or even maybe like a Jay, a Millennials Gen X. So he has that vibe to me. He could go very far. And no, I thought, Dylan, this was kind of cool because, in the new era, we've seen Beware advantages be the secret phrases, which nobody liked. We saw the beads with Carla and Cody and everything, and that was kind of like using your social game, which was interesting, but still a bit weird. Then we saw the cages last season, which also felt a bit different. But this, to me, Dylan, felt kind of old school. And I didn't want to say anything prior to the podcast, but one thing I heard in Jeff Probst's articles and teasing was because they have more airtime. And by the way, if people were curious, Jeff and the production, because people were saying, well, did they know that they had 45, they had 90 minutes for the episodes before they started filming? Or did they just film and they were told you have 90 minutes and now they got to squeeze in more footage? It's the first one. They found out prior to filming they had 90 minutes. So they were like, how can we kind of incorporate more stuff into the game? And what Jeff said was, we want idols to feel kind of old school, where you have clues and you need to solve clues and they're going to be a bit more complex than they used to be. So even though back in the day, castaways would get like a note, it has like a little bit of a riddle, you solve the riddle, you go to the idol, you find the idol. That's how idols used to work. This is a bit different now with a little bit of a puzzle on the flag, but it has that old school feel to it. So if idols are like this in the new era in 45, I'll like that a bit more, actually.
Yeah, I don't need just advantages hanging from a tree that somebody just walks around
Yeah.
and sees, and it's a beware advantage. Like, I do like the fact that even though it is a beware advantage, which I would rather just be a normal idol hunt where he keeps his vote, I do like that it is going to be more of an old school idol search, and I do like that I am curious to see what happens with that puzzle on the flag, which seems kind of tough to figure out. So it is going to be interesting. But
Dylan, really quickly, not only is it tough to figure out because you have to solve a puzzle, it comes with the risk because you have to literally hold the paper up to the flag to decipher it. So if someone sees you like, what are you doing? And obviously you can't do it at night because you're not gonna be able to see the flag. So he's got to find a time when people are either out in the water or going on a walk to the water well, because he's got to do it when no one's around.
He's got to get everybody in the water somehow, or they come back from a challenge dirty and he just like lets everyone go to the water first and says like, I gotta go to the bathroom or something, and then just like does it there.
Yeah.
Right while everyone's in the water. So that's what you got to do. But you're right. It is right. It's one of those things where it's right in front of everybody. So it is tough. And we'll see. I'm a big fan of Austin. I think he's going to go far as well. And then again, so we spoke about blue. We spoke about red. We kind of touched a lot on yellow. I don't need to get all into the details of what was going on at that camp, because it was just
lots of crying. That's all you need to know.
A complete disaster, lots of crying. What I do want to focus on from this tribe, and I don't think we spoke about it enough, Caleb and Sabiyah, they may be really good at this game. So we'll see how they navigate that. Sabiyah was somebody who I really liked. If you watch our preview podcast back, like, I really liked her coming in. I thought she had a lot of potential, and she exceeded my expectations even in the first episode. She's a huge physical asset for her tribe, and I think she gets it. She understands the game very well. And I feel sorry that she was put on a tribe like this, because it's going to make it way harder than it would have been. But like we've said in the past, some great players have come from the worst tribes. So you never know what happens there. And I feel like we got more from Sabiyah than we did Caleb, but Caleb seems to be like very level-headed. And, I think we were a little bit worried in the preseason that he was going to be like very loud and like kind of paint himself as a target. But he does seem to be very down to earth compared to a lot of people on that tribe, especially. Now, one thing I do want to point out from Sabiyah here is realize how, I believe in her preseason press, she said she wanted to be like a chameleon. And I believe that was the exact term she used. And let's not forget, she aligns herself with Caleb, who is going to always be seen probably as the bigger threat. And she's kind of using him as a shield, I would say. So not only is this a very tight bond that I think could be a duo that goes far, depending on how bad this tribe is, but
yeah,
I think it's a duo that could go very far together. At the same time, it's a duo that I feel like Caleb could take a lot of heat, where Sabiyah kind of pulls a lot of strings from behind. And I think that's why it's already a great move from her. So I'm really impressed with her gameplay and excited to see how she does moving forward.
Yeah, no, obviously, I really like Sabiyah as well, and Caleb's pretty good too. And I think it's interesting because it seems like they're pairing off, but unless we haven't seen it in the edit yet, they haven't made an official alliance. Like maybe it's unspoken between them, but we haven't seen an official clip where it's like, hey, I want to look out for you. I'll let you know if your name comes up. Emily clearly thinks that's happening, and I think they at Tribal were like, we haven't made any deals yet. You're just assuming that we're together. And that's also, speaking of Sabiyah and Caleb, This also was a rough look for Emily when she was like, "Oh, well, they didn't bring back supplies because they failed. They didn't bring back supplies because they chose to go for an advantage." And I'm like, ugh. So yeah, they're not going to want to hear that they worked their ass off in Savvy and Sweats, and now they're getting sussed for not bringing something back, and they chose to go for an advantage. So yeah, no, again, that was kind of also really weird and funny from Emily as well. But no, I think on this disaster tribe, if they lose again, which they're probably going to lose again, I think Caleb and Sabaya are a tight group, and I think Emily's in danger. The one thing I gotta say, Dylan, is Sean is like the wild card in this because if Emily's goes, Brandon's got to realize he could be next if Caleb and Sabaya are a pair. And it might come down to Caleb and Sabaya maybe against Brandon and Emily if they realize they need to stick together and seeing who can pull over Sean. And Sean could be a key figure in this tribe, but we didn't see Sean really at all tonight. Not tonight, on Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't see Sean much, but I do want to shout him out for, I think anytime we saw him, it was good, right?
Yeah.
You got a pretty good sense that he knew what he was doing. Got a good sense that he was very level-headed. So I love how I use level-headed after seeing the word level-headed after seeing what some of the people on the rest of this tribe are. But yeah, I think he will be a wild card. It will be interesting to see how he aligns, what he does. But I do anticipate, look, the odds may be against him given how bad the actual tribe is, and they may lose a lot of challenges if there's no swaps. But I do think that I like Sean as a player for sure. And we haven't really got to know him that much yet, but I do think that he is going to do very well in this game. One thing you did mention the Emily thing where she was like so sure that they had gone for an advantage instead. That was pretty funny. It's like, one, that didn't happen. Two, like it's you could see why she would think that it's not the truth, but the way she went about it was just like so funny. It's like you can't be like that outwardly like mad that you think this happened when you're not that sure that it happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you got like she's so over the top with everything that it is going to be interesting to see how she sticks around or if she doesn't stick around.
If you're going to make a claim like that, and by the way, Dylan, really quickly, can you remind me if she said that in confessional or she said that to other people that she suspects they got something?
I think she said it to other people.
Okay, so
I
if you're
believe
going to,
she said it to Sabaya. I think I could be wrong. She said it to other people for sure, though.
okay, because I can remember if she just said it to the camera or if she pulled over like Brandon or Hannah and she's like, I think they got something. But no, if you're going to call your shot like that, you better be pretty confident, especially if it gets back to Caleb and Sabaya, and especially if you get confirmation from the other tribes, like from Brando and Jake, that they failed too. It's not going to be a great look. Um, I say call your shot because if you remember, Dylan, in Worlds Apart, season 30, where Joaquin and So had to do a challenge where they could pick like the small bag of rice and an advantage or the big bag of rice and no advantage, and they picked the small bag, but they were like, oh, we went with the medium choice instead of this big or small one. And Max Dawson or whatever, Max was like, there's never a medium choice. It's either A or B. Like there's no medium choice. You guys are lying. If it's that much of a lie, then okay, fine, call them out on it or start making moves. But like Jeff told you it's Savvy or Sweat. I feel like it was a bold claim for her to be like, you guys worked your butts off for an hour and you didn't bring anything back, so you clearly got an advantage.
Yeah, it was. That's a great pull, by the way, from season 30. That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, Emily's just honestly good thing they casted her because we have not seen a character like this in quite some time. So I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm trying to think is there anything else that we need to touch on? We kind of spoke a little bit about tribal council, which I don't really want to get into more. We spoke a lot about Lulu. We touched on each tribe that won. Is there anything else that you want to discuss before we head to questions?
Yeah, I'll leave it up to you, Dylan. I know there was from what we learned from Exit Press, there was a twist that we didn't get to see in the episode. Now we could discuss it now if you would like to, or if you want people to see it on the episode first, we could save it for next week. But there was a twist that we didn't get to see because of the quits. I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Yeah. So the rumor is that there was a. You know what you want to go through it, Ryan, because I know I didn't read too much into the detail. I kind of just heard it. But yeah, there was a hidden quest in this episode that we did not see. So you want to go for explaining,
Yeah,
Ryan?
so what we didn't get to see, and I'm sure we'll see it next episode, but basically the winning tribe, and we've seen this in Samoa, we saw this in China with the kidnapping, we've seen this a couple times in like the middle school era, but the winning tribe will send one member to the losing tribe to observe them at camp, to kind of hang out with them, get to know them, maybe bring back some information to their tribe, and or go to tribal. I don't know if I got word if they went to tribal council or not, but the blue tribe, Bello, they came in first, so they got to send Kendra over to the yellow Lulu tribe. And I don't know if she went to tribal or not, but she got to spend time with them. But the twist in 45 is she gets a vote herself. Now, I don't know if the players knew she had a vote or not until maybe after the show, but Kendra got to cast a vote. So that's the twist. We'll see if it plays out next week and how that could shake up the game. That's a huge factor. If in a tribe of six, you now have a seventh vote, which can sway the tide if it's a 3-3 split. That would be 4-3. That'd be really interesting to see from a strategy perspective. The thing that's really interesting to me is like, it sounds like from Hannah that Emily would have went Dylan if she didn't quit, but it sounds like Kendra cast her vote for Brandon possibly. So I don't know if Kendra didn't want to vote for Emily. Maybe she thought that she could pull her into this women's alliance. Maybe she wanted to vote for Brandon for a different reason. But I'd be very curious to know whenever we get to hear from Kendra, what was that experience like going to the other tribe and why she chose to vote for Brandon, and maybe was she in on what the plan was or not?
I think an interesting scenario here is that one, who knows how open the yellow tribe was in terms of strategy.
Right.
Maybe they
Yeah.
didn't keep her in the loop because they didn't want it. They didn't want her knowing, and they kind of maybe just gave her some other vote. Maybe she also just chose to basically abstain from the vote by voting Brandon and knew it was going to be Emily, but like didn't want to choose a side per se. So she just like threw a vote on Brandon. It was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't think he'll be there that much longer. So like when we eventually merge, Brandon won't be there. He will not have this against, he will not use this against me because he won't be there. So
Right.
maybe she voted for somebody that she assumed would, be gone, but she didn't want to take a side. So she, voted for somebody who wasn't actually in the vote, but would be maybe gone by the time they merge. That's what I'm kind of thinking, but who knows? It never came to fruition, the actual twist. So
I feel like, and I would love to get your opinion on this too. I feel like in this, after episode one, the most interesting scenario to me is if Blue Tribe Bello goes to Tribal Council and Red or Yellow sends someone over there, and you have the three girls in Kendra, Kelly, and Katura, and then you have the three guys, and let's just say it ends up being guys versus girls. That person that gets sent over there now becomes that swing vote in a 4-3 vote. So I think that to me that'd be the most interesting scenario to see play out, possibly.
yeah, and I don't love that they get a vote at all. If you're gonna stick to three tribes, stick to three tribes and 6 votes.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if you want more votes at tribal council, just go to 2 tribes. Like
There you go.
I'm not really for this twist, and I'm kind of happy that it kind of just got botched by the quit. Um, I'm not happy that somebody quit, but if there was one twist that had to be botched by it, this is not a bad one for it to happen. Um, but yeah, let's get to questions, Ryan.
Sure.
I think we kind of touched on everything. Let me see what we got here. All right. Looking through, we got a bunch of things here. Okay, so I think this is interesting, and this is a big topic of conversations. Do we think that question from Jay, by the way, who thank you for being here as always. Do you think that Yellow will lose 2 or 3 members before the earn the merge round? And this is something I actually meant to say before, so I'm glad that this was kind of asked. I am praying that they go back to a tribe swap this season. I don't know if there is going to be one. I'm sure there's articles out there that say no swaps or swaps. I don't know what that is. But I'm praying that they do a swap this season, and I don't even want to say old school, a 30s version of just a tribe swap in the pre-merge. And if not that, I do hope they at least move a person around from each tribe like last season, so that it's not just the same tribes.
Yeah.
That being said, if there are no swaps, I think this tribe is probably going to get decimated. Like I think they're going to be they're terrible. There's no way this tribe is going to win more than like a challenge or two. I think they will be decimated.
Yeah, to quote again, to quote Cass, I want to see the criteria for these tribes because I mean, Hannah even said in her exit press, she was like, we didn't know if it was brains, brawn, or beauty, but she's like, I was looking at our tribe, I'm like, are we the brains? Because clearly they are outgunned. Like you have Caleb, you have Sabaya, but the other four, I mean, when you look at like Austin, Sifu, and Drew's very tall, and you have like Brandon and Bruce and Brando and Bruce and Jake, like this tribe is outgunned by a lot. And I don't know what that criteria was to make yellow, blue, and red here because they need, Dylan, you're right. They need a swap. They need to pray for a swap because unless there's a challenge involving strictly a puzzle or it's maybe a puzzle, because even the Brains tribe in Kageyama, they want a challenge where it was just like tossing water into buckets and then doing a vertical maze. So any tribe can win on any given Sunday, but like I really do feel that if it's a basic pre-merge type of challenge, they're going to lose a majority of them. To Jay's question, I could see them easily losing one or two more for sure. And you got to hope there's a swap, whether it's a full swap. I have no idea if it's happening or not, or if it's like last season where one person moves around. But they need help. They really do. They really do. I don't now. Listen, the biggest thing that we've seen in the new era that compares to like Palau was Shannon Ricard getting decimated in 41. Ua went down to 2. I don't know if we're going to get down to Caleb and Sabaya on Lulu and end up being 2 people there, but they're not looking too great. They basically in this episode they barely got to the puzzle before it was over. So
Yep. I have no hope for them if there's no swap. So hopefully there's a swap. And we could do this as the last question here, also from Jay. I think this is a good one. Do you guys think Emily could be kept around since they see her as a non-threat and somebody who they could carry to the end as a GOAT? I don't think they're thinking that far ahead yet. I think they're thinking like, what is best for my mental sanity for the rest of time. And let's not forget, Emily called out Sabaya and Caleb at Tribal Council. So if you're Caleb and Sabaya, what benefit is there to keeping her around if she wants them out? There's none.
And that's a great point, Dylan, because you told us Brandon went right back to Caleb and told him what Emily's plan was. Now, Brandon was honest, but Brandon could have been lying. He could have been feeding him some fake intel. But it got confirmed at Tribal because Emily flat out said you guys are working together. So, look, you're right. It's too early to think about the end. They're on day 3. And I do think you could make the argument, oh, well, she's not going to be a threat. But I think especially in those early days, especially where the game is so hard, especially in the new era, morale is so important. And Dylan, I think the perfect comparison for this is Second Chance. We saw this exact scenario. We're at the final 7. Oh, no, actually, no, I'm sorry. No, Game Changers. It's not Game Changers. Second Chance, we saw this a little bit with Abby Maria, but we really saw this in Philippines with Abby Maria. You have Lisa and Scoopin on one side. You have Denise and Malcolm on the other. You would think the original Tandang, Lisa, Michael, and Abby would stick together and vote out a threat in Denise, right? Who ends up winning. And what happens? They all say, Abby is so miserable to be around. We would rather vote her out instead of making her a GOAT. And I think that this is a perfect comparison here. Like, you got to be at least somewhat likable for morale, because if you are that negative, people are going to say, to hell with the game, you got to go. So to answer Jay's question, I feel like she might be doing a little bit too much here. Like, she did everything in her power to get voted out until Hannah quit. So I feel like they're not going to keep her around just because she's making camp not fun to be around.
Yep. You hit the nail on the head with that one. I agree. She has to be, she's got to be somewhat likable or tolerable at least. Otherwise she's getting voted out early. There's no reason to keep her around. But that's all we got for this week. Thank you everybody for tuning in once again. Reminder to subscribe and subscribe to the channel, like the video, really helps us out. And we will probably be back next weekend. I think for the foreseeable future, probably going to be weekend podcasts, which, would love to eventually get back to Wednesday nights, but who knows when that'll happen. Maybe next season, maybe in a year from now, who knows? But anyway, that's all we got for tonight. So Ryan, take it away.
Thank you for joining us for episode 1. Let's see how episode 2 goes. Maybe we'll have a tribal council vote to talk about. But thank you for joining us, and grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.